Gia, that could not be a more perfect way into this, because Flurry, his biggest fear, I think, should be himself. That is the mountain which he has to overcome, because while Frosty, I should say, is no slouch of an opponent whatsoever, I think yesterday he was looking pretty defeated, and just believing in himself that he can get this done, I think, is the biggest hurdle he has to overcome.
That's right. Among the players this season, I wouldn't think of Flurry first as the main culprit of crumbling under pressure, but that's not to say that we have had zero questions about his play. I think there are lines here and there that could have been improved, and I also like to see when Flurry is putting in more effort. I think he gets to be truly one of the best, one of the original invites, due to not only his community contributions to Hearthstone, particularly in the Korean community, but also consistent tournament performances since
Yeah.
the early days of Hearthstone. So he has what it takes, but this first matchup is going to be a mountain in itself.
It is indeed, Gia. We've got both of the warrior bands, and then the only real difference in the lineup thereafter is, of course, the warlock for Frosty and the rogue for Flurry. And that's the exact two decks that we have lined up here. The rogue in the stealth rogue for Flurry, I think, could be at a little bit of a disadvantage up against the quest warlock.
Yes, as we've seen the matchup pan out more and more, I tend to think it's actually one of Warlock's best matchups is against Rogue, because Rogue early pressure is a little bit slow. The stealth version having some more on-curve plays than other versions, I would say, but still all easily cleaned up by a Dark Skies. And once Warlock gets their quest online, they're suddenly able to put down dragons. And ever since the beginning of Galakrond Rogue, one of the most problematic cards for them to deal with is Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, which is an option for Warlock.
That is exactly right, G. It's weird for me to get my head around, because traditionally, I feel like Rogue would be great against this kind of deck that Warlock is going for. These slow, pseudo-control decks that kind of rely on late-game combos to get there. Against that, Rogue would just go hit you for 1,000,000 damage, and then Leroy step Leroy, and you're just dead before you can get anything done. But that is quite clearly not the case. Leroy moved to the Hall of Fame now, and no longer an option for Rogue, which means even in the Stealth Rogue list, which runs the Eviscerates, the Spy Mistress for a little bit of extra damage, it still is very difficult to get over there with just the pure aggro game plan.
Very true. Leroy relegated. You hate to see it, but both of these players are fighting to stay, of course, in Grandmasters. And we're going to start off with a pretty decent hand for Flurry. Always want to see an Invoke in the early hand, but he tosses it back alongside the Miscreant.
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to what your overall plan is in the matchup, because in a way it's similar to how we talk about Demon Hunter versus Warlock, where we're constantly saying you want to look for some more mid-game, you don't just want to go pure aggro. And Flurry, having found the Heist Baron Togwaggle, I think that is arguably not just one of the cards, but the card that he was looking for to have a strong mid-game in this matchup. That is a huge pickup.
Yeah, come to think of it, I think we did see Flurry also just keep Togwaggle in a similar matchup, or it might have been Shansu, but just going for the greedier cards, knowing that you have time at least until around turn 6, turn 7, and when he gets the wand online, it can be that pivotal swing, which can race the Warlock. Oh, fate your own face.
Yeah. It is far from ideal, but just getting these invokes rolling before he inevitably goes for Heist Baron Togwaggle into, hopefully for his sake, drawing Galakrond off of the Wondrous Wand for 0 mana. It's good to get that rolling while you have the mana available.
As for Frosty's side, of course he's happy to tap without seeing much pressure, but he's not drawn into a plot twist just yet. You could see him coin out the Netherwing to answer the Spy Mistress and take off most of the health on the Miscreant.
Yeah, you're obviously afraid of the Witchy Lackey is the main reason why you would hold back on that, but even if it does, he does have reasonable follow-up on the backswing.
I wonder if... The problem with the other alliance is that he would have to dump something in order to tap. He couldn't just play Ooze and tap because he'd still end up at 10 cards. And so if we're looking at other dump options, I feel like the Dark Skies gets more valuable than that. Whereas the Netherwing, should it come down this turn, disincentivizes Flurry from just dropping a Shield of Galakrond on curve.
That is true.
Quartz Coin is very valuable. It's all about resource management with this deck.
It's so hard, and it really, I guess, speaks to how you want to be approaching this matchup, doesn't it? Because the two major options, the diverging paths we see with Warlock here, is tempo. Do you develop your reasonably statted minions to try and fight back on board? Or do you dump your cards and try to find the plot twist for quest completion? And while Frosty could still divert back to the minion plan with Abyssal Summoner, it's not going all in here. I think what this definitely says to an extent is, let's get these cards out of my hand and find that plot twist.
Sure. It is a double dump play and also allows him to still get down either the Netherwing next turn or a coined Abyssal Summoner and try to put the pressure back on the other side. The other benefit of putting the Miscreant down to 3 health here is that should this Ooze survive, all he has to do is trade, and then the Netherwing is a full clear. Pretty good outcome for Flurry, for Frosty.
Yeah, I think you're just very happily going to be throwing this down. You know, I'm talking about the minion drawing through to plot twist plan. When you're presented with a clear this juicy, you just take it.
Oh, that is another Shield of Galakron in hand for Flurry, and he has the praise, so that would be 4 invokes already if he wants it.
That's right, just ready to go. The only problem then is, of course, hand size, because he needs to worry about going for clear out the hand as much as possible this turn, then you're going for Togwaggle next turn. But with this many lackeys in hand, 4 of which don't add any, or sorry, all 5 of which don't add anything to hand, he should quite easily be able to dump before he plays the Wondrous Wand.
That's right. And because he has so many of these Goblin lackeys, I think there's room to consider just rushing the Shield of Galakron now and take the trade. If he praises here, there's no guarantee that Frosty won't have an answer for it and allow another 5 damage to push face, and at which point Flurry might be still dealing with the 5/5 as a problem next turn. Well, I see a curve plan. Course be very large of a taunt here, not the maximum size, but easily challenges that 4/7. Frosty gonna count Mortal Coil to respect. Hog with no additional card.
Yeah, but the thing is, he already has many, many lackeys in hand, and of course Frosty knows that. It does feel like somewhat of a aggressive use, because you could also argue he's playing around the Faceless Corruptor, of course, as well, sorry, yeah, which needs a 1/1 on board. But then there's also still the lackeys in hand. I suppose it plays around Corruptor plus Sap or Corruptor plus Eviscerate, but that's getting pretty niche, I feel like, in a situation where Coin is a very valuable card.
Yeah, especially since it potentially makes Frosty's next turn very awkward, not having the coin. He's not able to tap and coin out an Abyssal Summoner, for example.
Is it cold in the shadows?
But still,
it does, of course, kind of...
8/8, yeah, it's still very threatening here.
Very threatening, and it gets rid of cards in hand preemptively, I will say, by getting rid of the coin, which is something that I have been harping on about, so it definitely serves a function.
I'm curious as to Frosty's target of freeze here. I was thinking he could freeze the Netherwing and say rush his Goblin Lackey with a second rush into the 2/2 instead, but he's prioritizing removing the Crazed Netherwing. I tended to like freezing the bigger because that always makes Dark Skies a bit more awkward for the Warlock.
It's true.
And given his abundance of Rush Lackeys, I think he could very easily, should the 5/5 survive, just go Rush Lackey, Tog, and rush the Tog next turn.
Yep.
I wonder if...
The benefit of this, I suppose, is that he does get like a fairly damaged minion on board when he's already seen a Crazed Netherwing, he's already seen a Rain of Fire. There's a decent chance that this now survives so that he can Witchy Lackey it on the following turn.
Yep, very good point. It's a decent target, if not the Tog itself, but Rossi is running into that awkwardness of having used the coin here. Would be inclined just to play down another 7/7. Doesn't line up great against a 5/2, but it at least has 1 extra health from just getting traded down on board.
And you are just, I think, quite cleanly looking at a Heist Baron Togwaggle here, and then you can rush the Togwaggle, and then evolve with the Witchy Lackey, the Shield of Galakron as well. It looks pretty clean to me.
Yes, there's also the alternative of rushing the shield, double trading, and then evolving the Tog for
True,
a 7-drop instead of a 6. But your line gets him 5 extra damage to the face right now, which is definitely not insignificant. I like the look of that better.
Interesting. So this does get him a 7-drop instead of a 6-drop. And when you're looking at a 7-drop like that, sign me up.
Wow. Skeletal Dragon for additional value just in case the wand even whiffs here. That's not unlikely, I would say.
And there is also, I suppose I should say, the chance that you can rush the 7-drop itself and then get even more damage through to face. I don't think that necessarily is the plan you'd go for, because then you're left with a 5-2 that trades very poorly against this board. But with this exact pan out for Flurry, it's worked tremendously.
And a great draw for Frosty there, because 3 out of 4 demons are already in hand. So it's just going to be cycle some more and what looks to be a Dark Skies clear.
Bing, bing for the double trade, and then, yep, nice, easy clear.
It's floating so much mana, though, and it feels bad to play the Sense for a single Moarg, but he's realizing that he needs to cycle and get closer to the plot twists. Sorry, I didn't even mention the Worthless Imp. How dare I?
Yeah, so he goes up to 9 cards. I was wondering if there was a way he could not get the Worthless Imp, but I think he would have gone up to 10 cards and it would have been the same same situation. And it's not bad to get Worthless Imp either, actually, to be fair. It's just another card for plot twist.
Amazing generation for Flurry there. Just slams the Ysera. He's seen a Dark Skies and it's quite difficult to deal with, but that's a huge draw for Frosty.
That is the draw that Frosty needed. All of a sudden, we can be looking at shuffling through, getting the quest completed. But first of all, he's saying he just wants to try and look for lethal over the next couple of turns.
Wow, he does have Malygos Soulfire in hand, so I don't think he can rely on this Alexstrasza sticking between knowing there's a wand in hand. But it's getting dangerous for Flurry. For Frosty, because Flurry, for all Frosty knows, could have gotten a Nightmare, for example, off of the Ysera card, or Ysera Awakens for burst.
Overall, a very underwhelming use of the Wondrous Wand. They're only getting 3 spells. It's one of the proposed nerfs that people have put forward for Heist Baron Togwaggle, is that they can only draw spells off the wand because minions are generally too powerful.
And Galakron itself. Yeah, but Flurry did miss the Flick, the Kronks, and the Galakron itself. The Sap, though, is amazing tempo here, forces Frosty to overdraw as well. And if Frosty doesn't find a way to lethal himself, he's going to have to spend a turn removing again.
Of which he will have a couple of ways. By saving the plot twist for an extra turn, he now could get either Keledan or the Twisting Nether in order to completely clear this board.
Yeah, I am also just looking at Twist first. Unfortunate that an Overdrawn card does not help towards quest completion.
Yeah, true.
But he will still just be able to get the quest done. Double Moarg, so Nether Breath is also a pretty good outcome if it comes off the twist, but there is the twisting.
Ooh. Wow,
Juicy.
This board is not that threatening, though. It's just the Ysera, right, which is the really scary part. So are we just going to see double Moarg Nether Breath? That deals with far and away the most scary minion. But that, however, is a 0 mana Malygos.
Oh my gosh. Of course, now Frosty doesn't want to throw out the Nether Breath, but since he's committed the tap and can't Nether anymore, I think he absolutely does have to respect at least one of these minions, get the healing back up, try to survive.
This is a very level-headed play. It's easy to lose your mind there and go, right, save it, next turn, I have so many draws for lethal. But if he just continues the game at an even pace now, he is so likely to win. 0 mana Malygos is the dream.
It really is. So far, he's just used that Nether Breath and a Rain of Fire. So we're looking at the Soul Fire still as a possibility. Other Rain of Fire, and the other Crazed Netherwing for burst. Of course, a Zephyrus already in hand. But for now, Flurry is going to try and go on the offensive. He's got these Shadow Steps in hand that aren't doing very much. And Double Dream? I didn't notice just how bad Flurry's hand was.
Yeah, I mean, he's got both good Shadow Steps
Oh!
and bad Shadow Steps here, with the Dreams and the Shadow Steps.
Zephyrus. Active Alexstrasza.
So he can go... Malagos Fireball is obviously only 11. So he's not facing lethal quite yet.
I think the tap is totally worth it here. If
Agreed.
it whiffs, you can just go Nether. So that puts him down to 12, and then...
Fireball is still one off.
Yeah, there's not a spell that does more than 6 in one go outside of Pyroblast, I think.
Yeah, or like Inner Demon, but that obviously doesn't get affected by the spell damage and is uncastable as well.
This is perfectly fine for Frosty, though. He could just
Absolutely.
rip the Nether and play down the Crazed Netherwing unchallenged on board. Double and triple checking to make sure there's no lethal in Malagos.
Seems fine. We're looking at a necessary full board clear from Flurry if he wants to even survive the turn.
Doesn't even rip the Nether, recognizes that there's a threat for, say, Kronk's redevelopment from Flurry, and this is still a perfectly fine board state for Frosty. Not too much damage on the other side, and he's at a very healthy life total. But Flurry just doesn't have any value. So many bounce cards, but no very effective battle cries in this position.
Oh, man, I tell you, Frosty was out on Twitter beforehand asking for everyone's energy, and I just hope he hasn't used up too much of it in this first game, because this is one hell of an outcome for the Warlock.
So many options.
Saw Frosty there being very reserved as well. He could have gone... oh, sorry, he had already tapped, so the Alexstrasza wasn't available just yet. But overall, still very measured to be holding on to a Malagos, because you could very well make an argument for playing it as a 4-12 for free. That is tempo. But he recognizes that from the Ysera that Flurry had for 2 turns, there were options to maybe remove it and make it full cost again in Frosty's hand. Flurry very meticulously making sure he removes the board without taking a single point of damage, but the problem remains that he doesn't have a way to present counter-lethal.
I mean, Flurry obviously needs to pray that he's not in quite so bad of a situation, but I think he knows exactly what's up. And for Frosty, he is now looking at very likely lethal here.
I think he's supposed to tap first to make it less likely that the Zephyrus
I think
whiffs.
so too,
Yeah.
but
Or maybe
at
the
end of
thinking
it,
was, yeah.
he is able to get
despite
it anyway.
us seeing the other way around for Frosty, I think he was thinking that if the Zephyrus gets discarded, then he still has mana after a Soulfire to go Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, which is also a very game-ending play. Many avenues there to victory for Frosty, but that is a very good matchup out of the way for him. Quest Warlock getting the win.
You know what? I wonder on the previous turn, after he went tap into Netherwing, if he actually had lethal with Netherwing to clear off most of the board, and then Zephyrus into the 6 mana, the spell that he just played in order to deal multiple damage to the board. I think it might have been ever so slightly off there with the Avenging Wrath, but either way, it does mean I think that may have been ever so slightly off. And we do see Frosty taking the well-deserved win as I bumble my way through to the situation he got through very easily with taking the lethal with Zephyrus there. Very well done in that first game.
Yes, and that is quite a relief for Frosty, I would say, if I were in his shoes. We've seen Quest Warlock struggle quite a bit this weekend. It seems like the honeymoon period for that deck is over. No longer are we hearing people crusade for it on Twitter and say that this is just the best deck in the game right now. Its weaknesses are starting to show, particularly if the opponent is bringing Highlander Hunter, which is a potential matchup that Frosty could have run into against Flurry.
Indeed. And now, with that out of the way, as I just got confirmation from Zottel, he did not have lethal. Brilliant. Good to know that I am just a classic dum-dum there. It does mean we are all done with our first game of the series. This player, or this match, decides who will be staying in Grandmasters and who will sadly be leaving us. We're going to go to a short break before we come back with Rogue versus Demon Hunter this time from Frosty. I think he's still in a good spot to go 2-0 up. You're watching Hearthstone Grandmasters. Masters. I've got turtles on the mind with the chat we've going on in our Discord at the moment. But this is a very solemn and important match here, despite the buffoonery that I am displaying here. It is Flurry versus Frosty here, the two players who have got down to the last chance for their survival in Grandmasters. Staz and Samuel Sao are sadly already relegated out, as you may have seen a little bit earlier on last week in Grandmasters. But these players have one final chance, and Frosty, at one game up, is looking to be in a prime spot to do so now, as his next match that he has up here is the Demon Hunter up against the Rogue. And even though I hear very good arguments on either side of this matchup, I still just love the power of Demon Hunter. Overall, I think it's just in such a great spot at taking down the Rogue due to its lack of healing.
I would completely agree with you, but if there is something to be said for the Rogue, I think we can quote Board Control re the Rogue versus Hunter matchup, for example, where Spy Mistress on it doesn't quite win the game immediately on the spot as he claims in Demon Hunter as it does supposedly versus Hunter, but it is a huge, huge deal because it just makes all of the trades so awkward, can't be interacted with by the hero power until it's unstealthed, and it allows Flurry the initiative for when he wants to gain back the board control.
However, looking, as you were saying, at the Rogue's chance to pull things back with the early board control, one of the best ways in the deck to do so is Spy Mistress, because since the dawn of time, Backstab for Rogue has been the best way to lock down the board and fight against any early minions. And Spy Mistress, although it's not a great or direct comparison, kind of functions like a couple of extra backstabs in this deck. Your opponent can't react with it, and it's a guaranteed clear.
It's insane. If we were talking about how, say, Dawn and Chonsu were teching in Worgen Infiltrators for the Mirror in Demon Hunter when people didn't know what to put in the slot of the Crimson Sigil runner, then Spy Mistress is just directly even stronger, able to also take down Frozen Shadow Weavers should it come to that. But Flurry's follow-up is looking a little bit weak. He's got a 5.7 into 6 curve, which oftentimes is far too slow against Demon Hunter, but Frosty's own hand is pretty bad.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing saving Flurry from his very expensive hand is that Frosty's hand is even more expensive as it currently stands, which is, I suppose, one kind of a saving grace if you want to look at it that way. As with the Faceless Corruptor as well. Yeah, this for Flurry's looking all right now.
It's looking amazing. He can coin it out with a guaranteed target, because the only way Frosty would theoretically have of clearing this Altruist right now is an Altruist Twin Slice, which you absolutely do not want to do this early on in the game. And Flurry's gonna take two very juicy value trades and gain complete control of the board.
Is there any reason to go for the Shield of Galakron first? I mean, you could potentially get a Lackey.
I guess the reason would be Warglaives. Should the Faceless Corruptor come down and take two trades, that leaves two 4/3s, which get eaten up by Warglaives. So, pretty good recognition from Flurry, I think. Makes the turn a bit more awkward for Frosty.
It does indeed, and it sets up for a pretty powerful couple of plays from Frosty next turn, of course, with Satyr Overseer ready to come down should Flurry decide to develop this Faceless Corruptor.
Well, now Flurry sees the Warglaives, so if he's just going to commit to a Faceless double trade turn, then he knows it's getting cleaned up. But if Frosty does that, he's taking 8 plus this 3 from the Spy Mistress. And Flurry's got Eviscerate in hand.
That's
he
a
has
good point.
Galakron coming up with Kronk's Shadow Step. I wonder if you just cede the board control and transform into the aggressor here.
It's a great recognition here, because my initial reaction was to say he's got himself in a great spot here with the alternate play of Seal Fate. He can just completely clear off the board with that line. But you've got to remember, it's not just free clears on the Warglaives. It comes at the expense of a lot of health.
Oh, huge for Frosty here in the outcast position. The other I-Beam can save him so much health here. In fact, he doesn't have to tank a 4/3 at all. He could just go I-Beam, hit face, and use the Glaive Bound to clean up the other one.
I think you'd like to tank one of them, though, right? Because you can go Satyr Overseer and then swing and I-Beam the other one.
Yes, I definitely agree. That gives him way better board presence that doesn't just get answered by an Eviscerate or Sap.
Yeah.
And I think after he heals up, he should be at a pretty life total against Rogue.
I mean, there's an alternate line of play completely where you could go swing and Glayfound an I-Beam. But I think going a little bit wider with the Satyr Overseer, to me, makes a lot of sense.
Agreed on that one. Okay, so this of course leaves him an extra charge of the Warglaives for later, and still 2 minions on the board. The Warglaive swing is already equipped as relevant because he has Glavebound in hand, I suppose.
That's true. And it is, of course, another swing that can go face. You know, I-Beams cannot go face, so this is, in a roundabout way, potentially creating more damage over the course of the game, which does very possibly represent Frosty's mindset in this situation. You know, he's slowly losing out on value if there's any kind of a decent hand for Flurry.
It is beyond decent for Flurry. He has Galakrond into Kronks after this turn, but he has to be careful whether that health total, I mean, it looks like Miscreant is the best mana expenditure for this turn, but that does mean he'll be taking minimum another 2 damage from this Satyr. So we could just see Kobold Lackey hit face and redagger. Yeah, and like the caution, I think he has no shortage of value starting next turn.
Agree completely. It's just about making sure he doesn't die to a Metamorphosis off the top, any nonsense like that. And this with Galakrond into Kronks and then possibly Shadow Step it back for 10 healing, 10 damage. That looks like a great way to close out the game.
Yes, indeed. For Frosty, the gut instinct is to just play the Skull as soon as it's active, but there's a key difference between Skull on 8 mana and 7, which is that when you have 8 mana and play Skull, you unlock a lot of the 5-cost cards once they're discounted to 2 to be played immediately. And so I don't mind the deviation from Frosty here, going for the Glavebound first and still putting on a decent amount of pressure.
Yeah, the only big reason I could think of to Skull there was if you thought you were going to hit Satyr Overseer, because that would be very powerful to go wide here. But with one of them already played out, I fully agree with your point that being able to hit Warglaives or the Glavebound next turn is super powerful.
I find that, again, just discounting Frozen Shadow Weavers from 3 to 0 is also very relevant, but it is largely, of course, dependent. Like, Frosty could have whiffed there. I don't mind that he took the guaranteed board development. And you can see that it has forced Flurry off of the Galakrond on this turn game plan. It's just too scary. If Flurry whiffs on removal, suddenly that's another 6 damage, negating the armor he gains.
Flurry now thinking, please no Skull, please no Skull, please no Skull, because anything else I feel like he can quite handsomely beat.
Oh, speak of the devil.
Whoa. Ramping up the damage. But now, Gia, this is always the situation where you have to consider, like, how likely am I to win? How much do I have to save back for Altruist here as a potential final push?
Well, given that it's not in hand, I definitely like committing as much to Secret right now. This is a matchup where, of course, you do freeze minions over weapons, and even the hero power face instead of dealing with the Lackey, because he's seen the one of Faceless Corruptor from Flurry.
Both players seeing the card they did not want to see from the other person, but thankfully for Frosty, Flurry does not get anywhere near so juicy minions for 0 mana.
Those are terrible results. Nothing with immediate impact on the board?
Yeah.
Yikes. I mean...
What about
Shadow Step, the
rush
Goblin Lackey? Yeah.
Then he can rush out the Greyheart Sage. Or just see what's in the cat first, of course. Oh, it's so expensive. Okay, looks like he's gonna evolve his Miscreant after it takes a VT.
Makes sense. Could potentially rush that out instead for an easier clear.
Very true. But the rope is burning. Gotta get everything done as rope. Oh!
I guess that's
Board
good.
space?
Yeah.
Yes, just
Yeah,
enough
yeah,
board
there is
space.
board space.
Does he get all the actions done? Alright. Phew.
There we go. Keeps him alive.
Whew. I mean, other benefit of the Violet Teacher, I just noticed, this is a wide board and there's a Kronks in hand with active Galakron. That's just counter-lethal on the other side, right?
Yeah.
And so now Frosty has to account for how many of these minions he can swing into with the Warglist to prevent lethal.
Oh my god.
So
It's
there
so
is-
close.
We're counting up Savage Roar here. With a Violet Teacher, this is just like old school Token Druid.
So if he goes down to 14 by attacking into both of the 3 attack minions, then there would be 12, 13 on the backswing. So he would be alive at 1 health.
Other consideration is how to set up counter lethal, lethal for next turn.
Yes.
Because right now it is alarmingly close, but not quite there.
Yep, well this is always happening.
Mhm.
That's always happening, and then it's just what you do about the last couple of minions. If he swings into another one, that I think means that Goblin Lackey off of the hero power is no longer lethal.
Okay.
Whereas now, Flurry needs 1 extra point of damage.
2 outcomes here. There's also the thinking that if you don't hit it, can you just get away with Kronks for the 5 damage lifesteal?
Maybe. Maybe even a taunt if you put them down that low and they can't attack in.
But surely he has to start with the hero power, right? Because the Kronks is always happening this turn.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
Right now it's 13 with the dagger swing, 1 short. It's a great setup from Frosty, not sacrificing too much damage that he can't get counter lethal on the next turn. 2 and 7.
Oh!
Misses. And so now he has to trade everything in, go for the lifesteal, and evolve into, for Flurry's sake, hopefully a taunt.
He's going for the
Oh,
taunt himself. He's saying, for Frosty, you only have 1 swing. You're at too low of a health
Right.
total. And he also hits the wrapped golem, the card in his
my.
hand that was useless when you evolve into it. It's insane.
I didn't even consider this. This is super smart now. Because he's seen a Twin Slice expended, so it's very, very unlikely that the Warglaves gets to go 8 damage or more to be able to swing into the reanimated golem and then face. It would involve the other Twin Slice Chaos Strike, something like that. Well spotted for Flurry.
If that 1-1 hadn't been developed, I think it still would not have been lethal for Frosty there, because he would have attacked in, but that would have destroyed his weapon, and then he wouldn't have been able to get into 7 damage to face. He would only have been able to push like 4 to face overall on that turn. So while it was flashy of a way to go out there for Flurry, I think the main thing was just he realized the taunt there was good enough.
Really well spotted. And saving himself at 7 health as well plays around just a metamorphosis off the top. I think that on both sides it was really well set up. We saw from Frosty that he made the Kronks lethal on that turn for Flurry unavailable. It had to be a specific lackey to get it as well. Love to see it from both sides on either of these players' possible last series in Grandmaster and one of the last series of the season. I think they're playing at their best.
Yeah, I mean, it really makes you think about things that Frosty could have done on the other side, though, because, for example, if he had traded into the Pharaoh Cat or any of those extra 1 minions, there wouldn't have been enough minion damage on board in order to take out the Cane without a swing of the weapon. And at that point, Flurry might have been forced to go for just heal instead of the taunt, because the Cane would have obviously bypassed the big 8/8 taunt anyway. So many things to consider.
Oh, wow.
And a small difference from Frosty could have been the difference maker.
Complex endgame for that series, but of course we're going into one of the most complex early games in the meta, which is the Demon Hunter Mirror. However, the early game action for both the players is not too great.
Yeah, it's pretty pitiful on both sides. Flurry obviously kind of could try and set up for a big Altruist turn, because I believe if he'd just let this survive, he could have gone then Frozen Shadow Weaver on 3 and double outcasted Altruist on 4, which is always a tempting option. But instead he decides it's worth clearing off just a 1-2 here. Which
Very
I'm
interesting.
not sure I
could-
agree with
Gold
necessarily.
in the shadows.
Not too sure either, but I can see the thinking is that he wants to keep the board as clear as possible going into the Shadow Weaver on 3 so that it would not die on board.
That's true.
It does make his follow-up plays very awkward though, as you said, because that Altruist is trapping in the I-beam.
Is it cold in the
course.
shadows?
One Weaver begets another, and I am pretty sure we're just going to see a full cost I-beam played here.
Yeah, just sets up for a very nice clean play of the Glaive Bound on turn 5, or Warglaves, of course, depending on the old situation. And it's one of the mirrors that we don't always get to see, but I think are always fun when we do, where it's just a very even early game. Neither player pulling into the lead, and then it's all about who can do the most broken stuff come the mid-game, which getting down an uncontested Satyr Overseer feels like a pretty good start.
That's right. The I-beam off the top for Frosty was huge. It means he only has to commit 1 slice for the generation of a Satyr here, whereas if the Frozen Shadow Weaver were still on board, he would have had to think about spending 3 slices on that. Never feels good. But Flurry, of course, has the best response in the Warglaves, and Frosty's skull is trapped in the middle right now. Not for long, though. After the Chaos Strike gets played, next turn it is playable from the left-hand side.
That is correct, even with a little bit of extra mana if he needs to cheat out the hero power along with the skull or whatever else for 1 mana. But the main thing here for Flurry that I'm really liking the look of is the fact that he is... Wow, I was going to say setting up for a really strong Altruist after the Glaive Bound can come down on this turn, but what we are quite clearly instead looking at, I think, is a very juicy Satyr Overseer.
Even the 3-cost hero power is fine here, but why settle for fine when you can go Battle Fiend, Chaos Strike, put another threat on board, and get an extra 1 damage face for your trouble? Very nutty.
It opens up some interesting lines to Frosty, though. Obviously, at the moment, it looks like he's going to have to clear the board in order to get the win. But with Metamorphosis in hand, a skull off the top, there's potential here, I feel like, to just start ignoring the board and pushing for lethal over the next few turns.
Oh, not sure
it's something
if he
to
can
consider.
race.
Probably
Well,
not quite yet.
It does involve the skull right now having to be quite
Yes.
nuts. I'm thinking a second Frozen Shadow Weaver, but he's not really hit anything too impactful. Umberwing is nothing to scoff at, though, especially since he's got Twin Slice to back it up.
I mean, the real point is it's not Altruist. That is what he absolutely needed on this turn, and he would be in such a good spot.
Yeah. The fact of the matter was, though, that just Metamorphosis and Ping that turn was not going to be able to raise
Agreed.
Flurry's damage, so I like going for the skull there. It's now dependent on whether Flurry can close it out, but oh my goodness, Warglaves and the Battle Fiend sticks on board.
Yeah, it's all starting to look rather illegal here for Flurry with these insanely powerful plays. I mean, I was saying Frosty can go for the burn plan. It's still something to consider as like a very fringe out to be able to take the game. If you can get an I-beam to take out the Battle Fiend, say. But it's looking less and less likely.
And if I'm Flurry, I'm swinging this last charge phase every single day of the week.
surely.
Sorry, last charge of the turn at least, because he still has an extra Warglaive swing for the follow-up, doesn't need to expend the second slice, never a need to press the hero power. And of course, there's the ever-present threat of a Shadow Weaver coming across the other side, so I like getting the swing in now.
Yeah, I wonder if his big consideration is Blazing Battle Mage, because you could play it out here. Your opponent has demonstrated, I think, that they don't have Altruist, or at the very least they're saving it for a little bit later. Or you could save it back for your own Altruist, of course.
Right. I think that was the big consideration there for Flurry, but this damage that's pouring on for Frosty is just far too much. Even if there's an Altruist off the top, not going to be able to heal him out of range of Swing and Glaive Bound. I think that's going to be GG. Skull could get Altruist plus second I-beam, but the I-beam has to be in the middle. Oh,
Oh, I-beam,
Not gonna cut it.
Kane, trade. It's close, but it's just not quite there.
I yield for now.
Throws it down, and after losing to the Rogue, and now in the mirror, Frosty, after going to a 1-0 start, is down 2-1, and it's the Demon Hunter that's letting him down. And if you remember, Gia, the week after the most recent nerfs to Demon Hunter, when the Crimson Sigil Runner went to a 1-1 as the kind of the biggest change to the deck overall, Frosty was, I believe, the one player in Asia Pacific who said, I don't think it's good enough at the moment. I'm just omitting it from my lineup, where he instead brought Priest in order to fill out his 4-deck format. But now he's realizing, I think, or at least caving to the peer pressure, if you want to put it that way, that it's worth bringing. But it is quite clearly not working out for him here.
I mean, if bringing Demon Hunter is the result of peer pressure, I would say this is one of the few instances where peer pressure is a positive thing. Friends don't
Fair
let
enough.
friends not bring Demon Hunter unless they are as innovative as Rivius and confident in the way that lineup works.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, it is true though. Flurry, however, still has that Highlander Hunter remaining, which is not the greatest matchup against Demon Hunter. So I do think, I can feel it in my bones that we're going to get a game 5 here, but of course we're going to have to see first whether Frosty can take the favorable, which in most cases pans out, but if it does work in Hunter's favor, it's largely dependent, I think, on the Desert Spear.
Indeed. And also a slightly more heavily teched list that Flurry has here. I'm thinking this looks great. Worgen Infiltrator on 1. Scavenger's Ingenuity is low-key the best 2-drop you have outside of Zephyrus. And he's looking to be in a great spot to dominate this board. Even the Tolvir if he needs.
I mean, Frosty's hand is great too, though. He has
That's
the 1-drop
true.
into Coin Satyr. And I want to bring up that I really like tossing the Ooze there from Flurry. When you're playing Ooze in a deck at all, you tend to think, oh, I'm playing a tech card for this specific matchup where they have Warglaives. But for 2 reasons. First being that the Warglaives will come down much later. And the second, that Flurry already had a turn 2 into turn 3 spoken for. I really like that he sends it back and just hopes to draw something more proactive.
Completely agree, Gia. But now, speaking of proactive, Frosty could have gone with the play we were looking at the start of Coin Satyr Overseer, but I actually really like his decision to hold back for a turn.
Yeah, knowing that there is a rushing beast in hand, he knows that the Satyr would get answered immediately. And so I think we're looking at Frosty taking it slow, setting up a Coin Warglave's turn, and then following up with the Overseer or the Glavebound.
Yeah, Juicy I-Beam, though, is that little bit too tempting for him, as he now has the option of going for things the other way. Generally, in these tempo matchups, you're looking to go Overseer first, pray that you stick it, and then follow up with Coin Warglaves. Whereas now Frosty could go Coin Warglaves, take out whatever's played, and then get an insane board of Satyr Overseers to just dominate whatever Flurry throws down.
With the board that Flurry's presented, though, a 6-1, should he not play the Dwarven Sharpshooter, you could still make an argument for just Satyr and Hero Power, and then hold on to the coin for more flexibility on the Skull turn. But if Flurry does drop down the Sharpshooter, I'm pretty sure we'll see the Skull.
Oh, you mean the Warglaves?
The Warglaves, correct. Actually, we could see the Glavebound with Twin Slice.
Yeah, it's very tempting. I just think that the setup for Overseer next turn, the potential is so high.
All I see is weakness.
Yeah, potential's definitely there, but Frosty has to be worried about the tech cards in Flurry's list. We did see the Ooze in there, and there's also a Frozen Shadow Weaver in this Highlander Hunter, so
Yeah.
I think pre-equipping Warglaves has some built-in risks.
Fair enough. I mean, you know, if you're afraid of some of the common 5-mana plays, Rotnest Drake here is severely mitigated in its power, of course, by the virtue of going wide on board. And there's strong follow-up, of course, still.
Wow, this is premium now for Frosty. It's a great Warglaves board to swing into, and later on, the Altruists coin and second slice. Of course, the slice probably gets trapped in the middle later on. More likely that we'll see the Altruist with the Skull discounted cards.
The important thing I think now for Frosty is to just not play too slow, not too value-oriented, because Flurry is moving into his power turns now. We're seeing Dino Tamer Bran next turn. We're seeing Siamat. Potentially we could even see a Zixor Prime over the next few turns, in addition to obviously Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. He needs to get the ball rolling right now.
That choice was so hard for Flurry there. You see that he had a turn 7 locked up with Siamat. It means that he doesn't go for Ooze this turn. Granted, there's only one charge of Warglaives left, and I think Flurry is prioritizing just Bran on 7 and Siamat on 8, or vice versa, is much more powerful than the immediate tempo he gains from the Ooze, and I respect that.
So this is far from an easy coin skull, because with the expected turn 7 plays being obviously Dino Tamer Bran primarily and also Siamat, they don't line up fantastically against this exact board which Frosty throws down, which is why I love this play from him. Realizing when to go for these low-value Altruists is difficult to spot, but the rewards are absolutely huge.
Monumental here. You never want to go Dino Trader, but you never want to leave up an Altruist, and now I think this forces Flurry onto the Siamat plan instead.
Yeah, I mean, probably Divine Shield Rush. You're not too concerned about taking out both of them. Wow.
Oh. He wants the clearest board possible for the Bran, I suppose. And now this gives Frosty a turn to spend the mana for the Skull. Oh, huge!
All I see is weakness.
Say to Overseer, it is the absolute dream to start progressing onto this board, threatening lethal. Again, Dino Tamer Bran, I dare you to throw it out here.
Yeah. I mean, the Umberwing is pretty great too, just to get even more threats on board. But Flurry, if he wants to respect the board, does benefit from that with the Unleash the Hounds. Wait a second. Is there some type of Hound's Roar lethal here?
Ooh.
Not quite. 14.
He's counting it up. He is counting it up. And then the next step is, of course, how does my opponent kill me? What do I have to kill versus what can I just send face?
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
The hero power costing 3 is annoyingly inconvenient for Flurry here, because he can't directly tell Zephyrus to give me Consecration here. Because you won't have mana after pressing the hero power. It'll give him Lightning Storm if he presses it first. I'm pretty sure Zephyrus will still give Consec with 6 mana remaining, but it is a full reactive turn.
Is that what you want to do, though, with Unleash in hand? Is it more valuable to keep the Unleash to go for a bunch of burst damage to face? I'm just not sure.
We could see Unleash Zephyrus Lightning Storm and just keep the 4/4s and make them go face. I'm not 100% sure how Zephyrus works in that situation, but Flurry's running out of time. Oh my good. Not respecting lethal outs from Frosty. Oh, but that's going to be game.
As we can quite clearly see, exactly, Frosty does have the backswing there for Flurry, and while I think right at the end there for Flurry, that's probably his best chance when he has just 5 seconds left. But overall, you've just seen a Skull. It didn't have to be that much for Frosty to get the lethal and equalize it at 2 games apiece.
I have to agree. It was the best play with that much time left, but the turn, I think as soon as he saw the rope burning, he could have tried to go for it. Again, it's really hard there. I'm not 100% sure if Zephyrus gives Lightning Storm or if you have the Hound board.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you have the full 6 mana left, whether it gives you Consecration, but I'm reasonably sure. What I do know, though, is that just the Bran is almost never going to give him the lethal, given what Frosty had on board and played on the previous turn.
Yeah, I mean, I love the point that you bring up about Zephyrus Unleash and the Lightning Storm all at the same turn, because you could just attack with all the Hounds to face first, which means Zephyrus, you know, if I had to do the Zephyrus Guesser, it's probably going to offer you like Sea Giant, and then hopefully the Lightning Storm in order to clear off the board, and then probably, like, I don't know, SI7 Agent as well, or a Shadow Madness. I mean, even if it was just Shadow Madness, that's not bad. It takes out most of the pressure from the board and leaves you still in a good spot. And even if it was the Lightning Storm, importantly, heading into next turn, you can still play Dino Tamer
Brand.
Brand to go
Yeah.
for lethal.
That was the big thing, that he was going into 9 mana, but now it's all coming down to this game 5 to decide who stays in Grandmasters for another season and who's getting relegated. It's a Highlander Hunter mirror.
Gia, this is the match of these players' lives. The single game is what this all comes down to.
So tense. Frosty misses a 1-drop and a 2-drop. It often feels like a death sentence in this matchup, and Flurry has 12 year. Zixor just has a curve.
He's got a good curve.
Okay. So now the Diving Griffin guaranteed picks up Faceless Corruptor for Frosty if he wants to play it right now.
Yeah, I don't think you're overly precious about trying to make it give you Zixor Prime later on in the game. I think you just want to be making the best plays that you can at every point along the way.
Equalizes the board. There's an argument for just playing Animal Companion, but if it lands on Lear,
Yeah.
definitely worried about a rush coming down from the other side for 2 value trades. When the other hunter gets to go for value trades in the mirror, it often feels like a death sentence.
Yeah, even if it's Misha, Diving Griffin is pretty scary there for sure.
Okay, starting with tracking here. Desert Spear could be a huge pickup.
Ooh, Scavenger's Ingenuity is interesting. Obviously no beasts in the deck right now, but if he thinks he can just survive until turn 8, that could be locking out the game going into a potential Dragon Queen Alexstrasza.
I don't know. I'm looking at the Og Merchant, and he goes for Corrosive Breath Og Merchant for
Oh.
clear right now. That puts
Okay.
a relatively innocuous minion on board going into the Faceless Corruptor turn. But keeping it in hand gives him a guaranteed turn 6 Faceless Corruptor. Also very important.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I respect the Orc Merchant. Not only does it give powerful plays coming up, it also just allows for the potential of 1-drop Faceless Corruptor on turn 6. I'm getting greedy here. I'm thinking about the plays that are a little bit too late game.
Well, Frosty gonna take a slow turn for himself, setting up for the Og Merchant swing. But okay.
Oh. I mean, that could be Edwin on the next couple of turns.
Could, but this 50-50 could be game deciding. I can't look, Derek. Oh! Okay, but Frosty has a clear. He has a clear. He shoots. Oh no, he can't. He can't shoot it because he gets
It
Divine
gives
Shield.
it Divine Shield!
Ah! Okay, but he can transform the Blazing Battle Mage instead for sort of a clear. Oh, it feels terrible.
I wonder.
I mean, he could just go Faceless Corruptor and then the Guardian Orc Merchant if he has to clear off the Dragonbane.
The fires of vengeance burn bright.
I suppose this does a similar thing. Yeah.
This trade really hurts, but I mean, he's hoping there's no Hounds or Desert Spear on the other side, but there's Hounds, there's Zephyrus. 5-4 gets to stick another day. Oh my gosh, Alex.
Yeah, Dragon Queen is insane to have found at this point.
Flurry is taking the lead here decisively, and Frosty has to spend another turn just answering with the Siamat.
Winds of the south.
It's a good answer. It puts him technically ahead on board for the moment, but for Flurry, whether he wants to go for board control or just raw face damage on the following turn, he puts himself in such a good spot.
You'll find me wherever
And the
the
Bran is just coming down on curve. Absolutely no reason to trade here. No Zephyrus for Frosty, I think. We're getting close to the end, Derek.
Breaks my heart to say it, Gia, but I think you might be right. Orc Merchant on his own Siamat can allow for a nice value trade, of course. But without any healing, and if he can't clear off the Dino Tamer brand, just Hero Power, Zephyrus, Fireball, be exact lethal.
I don't see a way to deal with both the Crush and the Bran. Well, it would involve giving up his whole board and ending up with a 2-1 at the end of it, right?
Yeah,
These
he can do
Zixor
it.
trades. But that
the
doesn't
thing
seem
is-
like a winning play. You just have to pray
Exactly.
the Zephyrus isn't there.
You have to just pray he doesn't have the Zephyrus. It's the correct play, but at the end of the day, Gia, it just so happens to be the losing play for Frosty, and it is the last turn he has here in Grandmasters.
Oh my god. Frosty
Yeah.
hangs his head, but I hope... I mean, I'm definitely sure he'll watch the VOD, or if Flurry plays the Zephyrus, he'll also know that there was lethal anyway, but had a painful way to go out. And after Flurry lost 2 matches in the relegation bracket, despite coming from Division A, was super close to relegation, but he lives to see another season of Grandmasters alongside his teammate Don.
I'm sure there are many, many happy Korean Hearthstone players right now, what with Flurry being one of the most popular players in all of Korea, and justifiably so. I think a very well-played series of Hearthstone from him there. The only real blip, of course, being that turn with the Dynatamer Bran and the Zephyrus. I think that was very salvageable for him in that game, and he could have just locked out a turn earlier. But in the end, it does sadly mean that we are going to be seeing Frosty departing from Grandmasters. What a journey it has been for him thus far. He came so close and was given a final breath of life, one final chance last week by Tyler discarding his Zephyrus and allowing him to take the win to fight it out this week. But at the end, sadly, it was all for nothing.
I don't want to say all for nothing. I think Frosty, with the times he has been on stream, has shown that he's a very strong Hearthstone player and show how he got into Grandmasters in the first place as one of the APAC players that wasn't there because he had a huge stream or a particularly big following, but because he was so consistent in the previous system of HCT, always getting great ladder finishes, getting points to go to the old system of playoffs, top 64 in the region consistently, and he earned his spot there for 3 seasons. It's sad to see him go, but I do hope we will see more of Frosty in the Masters tours coming up soon.
I hope so as well. I am very, very fond of Frosty. I think he's a very lovely man and also a very strong Hearthstone player, always willing to give us a helping hand and tell us a little bit about his strategy. And APAC Grandmasters will be all the sadder for seeing him go. But that does sadly mean that we have to move on now, Gia, from our relegation matches. Flurry